To your people. What we're planning is called justice. The Vrak will survive, but they will never again be able to. T. Captain Alex Kane stood in the briefing room aboard the USS Constitution, looking at the holographic display showing the Vrak Empire's territory. 43 star systems spread across hundreds of light years, each one filled with ships and soldiers ready to fight. 6 weeks ago, this would have seemed like an impossible challenge. Now it just looked like a target-rich environment. Gentlemen, Kane said to the assembled officers, we're about to begin Phase 2 of Operation Broken Chain. Intelligence reports indicate the Vrak are expecting us to attack their military bases and fleets. They're wrong. Major Rachel Stone, commander of the Constitution's Marine Battalion, leaned forward. What's the actual target, sir? Kane smiled. Their minds. The holographic display changed to show psychological profiles of Vrak leadership. Kane had spent weeks studying these files, learning how the enemy thought, what they feared, and how they made decisions. The Vrak were predators by evolution, but that meant they had predator weaknesses as well as predator strengths. The Vrak Empire is held together by fear, Kane explained. Their own people obey them because they're afraid of punishment. Their enemies surrender because they're afraid of death. Their allies support them because they're afraid of abandonment. Fear is the foundation of everything they do. So we make them more afraid? Asked Lieutenant Commander Steve Mitchell. No, Kane replied. We make them afraid of the wrong things. Kane activated a new display showing human ships scattered throughout Vrak space, not attacking, not fighting, just sitting there, watching. For the past 2 weeks, our ships have been appearing in Vrak systems and then doing nothing. We show up, scan their defenses, take some pictures, and leave. No shots fired, no threats made, just presence. Stone nodded slowly. Psychological pressure. You're making them paranoid. Exactly. Every Vrak commander is now wondering when we're going to attack their system. They're reinforcing defenses, calling in reserves, and wasting resources on preparations for battles that aren't coming. Kane changed the display again. This time it showed communication intercepts from Vrak military channels. The translations painted a picture of growing panic among enemy commanders. Listen to this, Kane said, playing an audio file. Vrak Fleet Admiral Kreshtok to High Command. Human vessels detected in Sector 7. Request immediate reinforcement. Enemy intentions unknown, but assume hostile. And this one, Kane continued, playing another file. Vrak Defense Commander Zarneth. Human ship observed our orbital platforms for 6 hours, then departed. No weapons fired. Possible reconnaissance for future attack. Recommend evacuation of civilian populations. They're doing our job for us, Mitchell observed, making themselves afraid without us having to actually do anything. That's just the beginning, Kane said. Commander Stone, show them the audio files. Stone activated her workstation and the room filled with an eerie sound. It was human laughter, but processed and modified to trigger specific fear responses in Vrak nervous systems. The sound made even the human officers uncomfortable. We've been broadcasting this on all frequencies in Vrak space, Stone explained. Not constantly, just random bursts at unpredictable times. Their communication officers have to listen to it to make sure it's not hiding actual messages. Psychological. Warfare 101, Kane added. Disrupt their sleep patterns, create stress, make them jump at shadows. After 2 weeks of this, most Vrak crews are operating on little sleep and maximum paranoia. Kane brought up another display showing Vrak troop movements. Red arrows indicated units being pulled back from frontline positions and reassigned to guard duty. The Vrak are now protecting targets we haven't even threatened, he said. They've withdrawn 3 full battle groups from Coalition space to guard their core worlds. They're fighting an enemy that exists mostly in their imagination. Sir, asked Lieutenant Tony Clark, what about their leadership? Are they falling for this? Kane grinned. Better than we hoped. Watch this. The display showed a recording from a Vrak High Command meeting. The aliens looked like giant insects wearing military uniforms, their compound eyes reflecting nervousness as they argued about human intentions. Emperor Zarketh has called 7 emergency sessions in the past 10 days, Kane explained. His generals are demanding reinforcements for their sectors. His admirals want permission to launch preemptive strikes. His intelligence officers are reporting human ships everywhere and nowhere at the same time. "And what does the Emperor want?" Stone asked. "To make it all go away," Kane replied. "According to our sources, he's been asking about surrender terms." The room fell silent. The idea that the Vrak Empire might surrender without a major battle had seemed impossible just weeks ago. "There's a problem, though," Kane continued. "Vrak culture doesn't really have a concept of surrender. They understand submission to superior force, but not negotiated peace. If we want this to end without years of fighting, we need to make them understand that resistance is not just futile, but suicidal." "How do we do that?" Mitchell asked. Kane activated the final display. It showed a detailed plan for something called Operation Nightmare. "We're going to show them what humans are really capable of," Kane said. "Not the polite, civilized version we've been using. The real thing." Operation Nightmare was divided into 3 phases. Phase 1 involved capturing a Vrak fleet intact without killing any of the crew. Phase 2 required demonstrating human capabilities in ways that would break enemy morale permanently. Phase 3 was psychological conditioning of the captured crews to spread terror throughout the Vrak Empire. "The target is Admiral Vex Era's battle group," Kane explained. 12 ships, approximately 8,000 Vrak personnel. They're currently positioned in the Kepler system, guarding a supply depot. "How do we capture 12 ships without a fight?" Stone asked. Kane smiled. "We ask them to surrender." "Sir?" "Major, what's the most terrifying thing you can imagine?" Stone thought for a moment. "An enemy that doesn't want to fight you because they know they don't need to." "Exactly. We're going to approach Admiral Vex Era's fleet and politely request their surrender. When they refuse, we're going to disable their ships without firing a shot. Then we're going to board them and demonstrate why resistance is pointless." Kane brought up technical specifications for human non-lethal weapons. The devices were designed for crowd control and prisoner management, but they would seem like magic to the Vrak. "Electromagnetic pulse weapons to shut down their electronics," Kane explained. "Sonic disruptors to incapacitate their crews. Neural scramblers to cause temporary paralysis. We'll have their entire fleet helpless in under an hour." "And then?" Mitchell asked. "Then we board their ships and have a conversation with their crews," Kane replied. "We explain exactly what humans are capable of. We show them our weapons, our technology, our history. We make sure they understand that everything we've done so far has been us playing nice." Stone nodded slowly. "Psychological conditioning. Turn them into messengers." "Right. When we release them, they'll spread stories throughout the Vrak Empire about what they experienced. Not just military intelligence, but pure terror. Fear of an enemy that can disable their ships at will and chose not to kill them." Kane changed the display to show estimated psychological impact projections. The models predicted that Operation Nightmare would cause a 50% decrease in Vrak military morale within 30 days. "The beauty of this approach," Kane continued, "is that it makes use of Vrak psychology against them. They understand predator-prey relationships. What they can't understand is a predator that chooses not to kill its prey. It violates everything. They believe about how the universe works." "What if they decide to fight anyway?" Clark asked. Kane was quiet for a moment. "Then we stop being polite and start being efficient. But I don't think it will come to that. The Vrak are bullies, and bullies fold when they meet someone stronger than them." "When do we begin?" Stone asked. "Tomorrow," Kane replied. "The Constitution will approach Admiral Vex Era's fleet at 0800 hours. We'll broadcast a surrender demand and give them 1 hour to comply. If they refuse, we proceed with boarding operations." Rules of engagement? Mitchell asked. Minimum necessary force, Kane said. We want prisoners, not corpses. The goal is to convince them that humans are so powerful we don't need to kill our enemies to defeat them. After the briefing ended, Kane remained alone in the room, staring at the tactical displays. Operation Nightmare was risky. If it failed, the war would continue for years and cost millions of lives on both sides. But if it succeeded, the Vrak Empire would collapse without firing another shot. Kane had studied enough military history to know that the most effective weapons were often psychological rather than physical. Nuclear weapons had ended World War II not because of their destructive power, but because they convinced the enemy that continued resistance was pointless. Tomorrow, the Vrak would learn that humans had weapons far more terrifying than anything that merely destroyed matter. They had weapons that destroyed hope, broke will, and turned enemies into allies through the simple demonstration of overwhelming superiority. Kane just hoped the Vrak were smart enough to recognize defeat when they saw it. If they weren't, Operation Nightmare would be. Emperor Zarketh of the Vrak Empire sat alone in his throne chamber, staring at the reports scattered across his desk. 3 months had passed since the first human ships appeared in his territory. 3 months of defeats, retreats, and growing terror among his people. The humans had not conquered his empire. They had done something worse. They had broken it. His clawed hands trembled as he read the latest intelligence report. Admiral Vexira's entire battle group had surrendered without firing a shot. 12 warships and 8,000 of his best soldiers handed over to the humans like a gift. The official report claimed their electronics had been disabled by unknown weapons, but Zarketh knew the truth. His forces were too afraid to fight. The throne chamber doors opened, and General Kreshtok entered, his insect armor clicking as he moved. The old soldier looked tired and defeated, nothing like the fierce warrior who had conquered half the galaxy. My Emperor, Kreshtok said, I bring word from the human fleet. More demands? Zarketh asked. A message from their admiral, Morrison. He wishes to meet with you personally to discuss terms. Zarketh laughed bitterly. Terms? What terms could there be? We have lost everything without even fighting a real war. It was true. The humans had used no massive fleets, launched no invasions of Vrak worlds, killed relatively few of his people. Instead, they had systematically destroyed his empire's will to fight. His own generals now questioned every order. His ship captains refused dangerous missions. His soldiers surrendered at the first sign of human ships. What do our allies say? Zarketh asked. The hegemony has declared neutrality, Kreshtok replied. The Syndicate is offering to mediate peace talks. The consortium has closed their borders. To our ships, all abandoned. Every species that had once feared the Vrak Empire now treated them like defeated refugees. Word had spread throughout the galaxy about human capabilities, and no one wanted to be associated with the losing side. How many ships do we still control? Zarketh asked. Perhaps 60 vessels across all systems, Kreshtok said. But most crews are requesting reassignment to non-combat duties. 60 ships out of over 300. The Vrak military had not been destroyed. It had simply stopped functioning as a fighting force. And what of our homeworlds? Secure. But only because the humans have not chosen to attack them, Kreshtok replied. Our populations are demanding that we end this war before the humans lose patience. Zarketh understood. His people had heard the stories from captured crews, tales of human ships that could disable entire fleets without visible weapons, stories of human soldiers who fought in conditions that would kill any Vrak, accounts of human technology that seemed to violate the laws of physics. But worse than the stories were the recordings. The humans had released their captured crews after what they called educational sessions. The Vrak soldiers returned home carrying recordings of human cities, human ships, human weapons. They showed films of Earth, a planet so hostile that merely breathing its air would poison most Vrak. They carried evidence of human wars where millions died, and the survivors built even stronger civilizations. Most terrifying were the psychological evaluations. Human doctors had studied captured Vrak soldiers and produced detailed reports on their fears, weaknesses, and breaking points. The reports were shared freely with Vrak leadership, along with a simple message. We know exactly how to destroy you, but we choose not to. My Emperor, Kreshtok said quietly, I believe we should accept the human offer to meet. Why? Zarketh asked. So they can humiliate us in person? No, the general replied, so we can learn what they want from us. The meeting took place on a neutral station in the border region between Vrak and Coalition space. Zarketh arrived with a full diplomatic escort, expecting to find human ships surrounding the station. Instead, he found only a single vessel, the USS Liberty, Captain Morrison's command ship. One ship. The Emperor of the Vrak Empire rated a single human ship. As an honor guard, Captain Jake Morrison met Zarketh in the station's main conference room. The human was smaller than the Emperor had expected. Unremarkable except for his calm confidence. He looked like someone attending a routine business meeting, not negotiating the fate of an empire. Emperor Zarketh, Morrison said, standing as the Vrak leader entered. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I had little choice, Zarketh replied. Your people have made continued resistance impossible. Morrison nodded. That was the idea. Please sit. We have much to discuss. The conference table was set for both species, with environmental controls adjusted to accommodate Vrak biology. Zarketh noted that the humans had provided everything necessary for his comfort, another subtle demonstration of their capabilities. What do you want from us? Zarketh asked. Peace, Morrison replied simply. An end to the war, an end to Vrak. Aggression, and a beginning of something better. You could have achieved that by destroying us. We could have, Morrison agreed. But destruction is wasteful. We prefer transformation. Morrison activated a holographic display showing a map of the galaxy. Vrak territory was highlighted in red, but so were dozens of other regions. Your empire is not the only threat to galactic peace, Morrison explained. There are other predator species, other aggressive civilizations, other empires built on conquest and exploitation. We need allies, not rubble. You want us to fight for you? No, Morrison said. We want you to fight with us. There's a difference. The display changed to show detailed plans for what the humans called the Galactic Peace Accords. It was a framework for interspecies cooperation, with Earth serving as the ultimate guarantor of security. The Vrak Empire will be dissolved, Morrison explained. Your territory will be reorganized into autonomous regions under human oversight. Your military will be reduced to system defense forces. Your government will be restructured to represent all species in your territory, not just the Vrak. And if we refuse? Morrison was quiet for a moment. Emperor, do you know what the human military calls a species that refuses to accept peace? Zarketh shook his head. A target, Morrison said simply. We've tried the civilized approach. We've demonstrated our capabilities without causing unnecessary casualties. We've offered you a chance to survive and even prosper under new management. If you refuse, we'll solve the problem permanently. You would commit genocide? We would remove. A threat, Morrison corrected. Genocide implies we would target civilians. We wouldn't. We would simply eliminate your government, your military, and anyone who continued to resist. The Vrak people would survive under new leadership. Zarketh understood. The humans were not offering surrender terms. They were offering a choice between managed transition and forced replacement. What guarantees do we have? Zarketh asked. None, Morrison replied honestly. You'll have to trust us. But consider this. We could have destroyed your empire 3 months ago. Instead, We spent time and resources trying to save it. That should tell you something about human intentions. Morrison activated another display showing human colony worlds. Green planets filled with cities and peaceful populations. This is what human protection looks like, Morrison explained. Species that accept our oversight enjoy unprecedented peace and prosperity. No wars, no conquest, no fear of external threats. In return, they give up their right to threaten their neighbors. And those who refuse? The display changed to show barren worlds marked with warning symbols. These are systems that chose to fight us to the end, Morrison said. We gave them the same choice we're giving you. Some accepted, others didn't. Zarketh studied the dead worlds. Each one had once been home to billions of beings. Now they were monuments to the price of defying humanity. The galaxy is changing, Emperor, Morrison continued. The age of predator empires is ending. Species that adapt will survive and prosper. Those that don't will become extinct. We're offering you a chance to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. What happens to me? Zarketh asked. That depends on you, Morrison replied. If you cooperate with the transition, you'll be allowed to retire with full honors. If you resist, you'll be removed from power and tried for war crimes. If you actively sabotage the peace process, you'll be eliminated. Morrison leaned forward slightly. But if you genuinely help us build something better, you might find that being remembered as the emperor who chose peace is better than being remembered as the one who chose extinction. Zarketh was quiet for a long time, considering his options. The Vrak Empire was already dead. The humans had killed it without firing a shot. The question now was whether anything could be saved from the wreckage. What would you need from me? Zarketh finally asked. Full cooperation with the transition government, Morrison replied. Public support for the peace accords. Help in convincing your people that resistance is futile. And in return, your people survive. Your species continues. Your children grow up in a galaxy where they don't have to fear extinction every time they meet someone stronger than them. Morrison stood up and moved to the window, looking out at the stars. Emperor, humanity spent most of its history fighting itself. We know what war costs. We also know what peace is worth. We're offering your people something we took thousands of years to achieve, a guarantee that they'll never again have to choose between conquest and extinction. Zarketh joined Morrison at the window. Outside, he could see a few human ships patrolling T. Jake stared at the countdown timer on his screen. 53 minutes until the alien deadline. The 12 ships were now close enough for detailed scans, and what the sensors showed made his blood run cold. Each alien vessel was the size of a small city. Their hulls were dark and covered with strange patterns that seemed to shift in the light. Weapon ports dotted their surfaces like angry eyes. Jake had fought in the Centauri Wars, but he had never seen anything like these ships. All hands, too. Battle stations, Jake announced over the station's communication system. This is not a drill. Prepare for possible hostile action. The crew of BlackRock 7 moved quickly. The miners abandoned their work and hurried back to the station. Danny Cooper gathered his security team in the armory. Carl Brooks began emergency procedures to protect the station's critical systems. Dr. Lisa Thompson worked in her lab, downloading all her research data to secure storage. If the worst happened, she wanted to make sure someone would find their work someday. Commander, Susan said, we should evacuate the station. The emergency pods can get everyone to safety. Jake considered it. The evacuation pods could carry all 43 people away from BlackRock 7. But the pods were slow and had limited range. The alien ships could easily catch them. Not yet, Jake decided. Maybe we can still talk our way out of this. Pete was trying every communication channel he could think of. Still no response to our messages, Commander. They are not interested in talking. The minutes crawled by. Jake watched the alien ships grow larger on the main screen. He could see details now, weapon turrets, docking bays, and strange energy fields that surrounded each vessel. 30 minutes to deadline, Susan reported. Jake made his decision. Sound general quarters, all civilians to the emergency shelters, security teams to defensive positions. Engineering, I want you to get those old plasma cannons online. Carl's voice came through the communication system. Those cannons have not been fired in 5 years, Commander. No guarantee they will work. Make them work, Carl. We might need every weapon we have. Danny Cooper's team moved through the station, helping civilians reach the reinforced shelters in the central core. The miners grumbled about leaving their valuable equipment, but they followed orders. Everyone could feel the tension in the air. Dr. Thompson finished securing her lab and headed for the command center. Commander, I want to stay and help. I might be able to learn something about these aliens. Jake nodded. Stay close to the emergency exit. If things go bad, you run. 15 minutes, Susan announced. The alien ships were close enough now that they filled the main screen. Jake could see smaller craft moving around the larger vessels, fighters or boarding ships, he guessed. The aliens were preparing for battle. Pete, send one more message, Jake ordered. Tell them we are willing to discuss their concerns. Ask them what sacred space we have violated. Pete sent the message. They waited. No response came. 5 minutes, Susan said quietly. Jake looked around the command center. Pete was sweating as he worked his controls. Susan stood straight and calm, ready for whatever came next. Dr. Thompson watched the alien ships with scientific curiosity, even in the face of danger. These people trusted him to keep them alive. Jake had been in command of BlackRock 7 for 3 years. In all that time, the biggest crisis had been a reactor malfunction that Carl fixed in 6 hours. Now he faced something no human commander had ever dealt with. Time, Susan announced. The alien ships stopped moving. For a moment, Jake hoped they might be reconsidering. Then the weapons fired. The first energy beam hit the station's outer hull like a giant fist. The lights flickered and alarms began screaming. A second beam followed, then a third. The ancient metal of BlackRock 7 groaned under the assault. Hull. Breach in Section 7, Carl reported over the communication system. Evacuating that area now. Jake gripped his chair as another impact shook the station. Through the main window, he could see pieces of debris floating away into space. The aliens were tearing his home apart. Return fire with the plasma cannons, Jake ordered. The station's 2 old weapons came to life. Twin beams of superheated gas shot toward the nearest alien ship. Jake watched hopefully as the plasma struck the dark hull. The beams did nothing. They splashed against the alien ship's shields like water against a rock. Direct hit, no damage, Susan reported grimly. More energy beams pounded the station. Jake could hear the sound of twisting metal and escaping air. Red warning lights flashed. Throughout the command center. Commander, Danny's voice came through the communication system. We have alien boarding pods incoming. They are trying to dock with Sections 3 and 5. Jake's worst fears were coming true. The aliens were not content to destroy the station from a distance. They wanted to come aboard and finish the job personally. All security teams to repel. Boarders, Jake ordered. Civilians stay in the shelters until further notice. Dr. Thompson was studying her scanner. Commander, I am detecting life signs in those boarding pods. The aliens appear to be much larger than humans. Another massive impact shook the station. This time, the lights went out completely. Emergency power kicked in a few seconds later, bathing everything in red light. We have lost main power, Carl reported. Running on backup systems only. Jake could hear the sound of cutting tools through the hull. The aliens were breaking into his station. In a few minutes, they would be face to face with humanity for the first time. Pete, send a final message to Earth Command, Jake ordered. Tell them we made contact with an alien species. Tell them what happened here. Pete's hands shook as he typed the message. Message sent, Commander. The cutting sounds grew louder. Jake could hear them in the walls around the command center. The aliens were close now. "Danny, report!" Jake called into his communicator. "They are through the hull in Section 3, Danny replied. His voice was tight with tension. "First visual contact with the aliens. Holy hell, Commander, these things are huge." Jake heard the sound of gunfire through the communication system. Human pulse rifles firing in rapid bursts. Then Danny was back on the radio. "Our weapons are not very effective against them, Commander. They have some kind of natural armor. We need bigger guns." More sections of the station reported hull breaches. The aliens were coming aboard in multiple locations, spreading out to avoid the human defenses. They were smart and organized. Dr. Thompson was taking readings with her equipment. "Commander, I am getting biological scans of the aliens. They are definitely not human. Larger, stronger, and apparently well protected against our weapons." Jake made a quick decision. "All hands, fall back to the central core. We make our stand there." The crew of BlackRock 7 began a fighting retreat toward the heart of the station. Jake could hear the sounds of battle echoing through the corridors. Pulse rifle fire, alien roars, and the screams of injured humans. "Commander," Susan said quietly, "we should consider evacuation now. The emergency pods might still be able to get some people away." Jake looked at the tactical display. The alien ships had surrounded the station completely. Any escape pods would be easy targets. "No one gets left behind," Jake said firmly. "We hold the core and we make them pay for every inch." But even as he spoke, Jake knew the situation was desperate. His small security force was facing an unknown number of aliens with superior weapons and armor. The station was falling apart around them. As the crew reached the central core, Jake got his first look at their enemies. Through a security camera, he watched an alien warrior moving through the damaged corridors. The creature was over 7 feet tall, with dark skin that looked like natural armor. It had 4 arms, each ending in claws that could cut through metal. Its head was elongated, with multiple eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. But what struck Jake the most was how the alien moved. It was not random or savage. It advanced carefully, checking corners and coordinating with its teammates. These were professional soldiers, not mindless monsters. "Dr. Thompson," Jake said, "I need you to study everything you can about these aliens. Find me a weakness." Lisa nodded and began working with her equipment. "I will do my best, Commander." The sounds of fighting grew closer. Jake could hear Danny and his team falling back toward the core, fighting every step of the way. The aliens were pushing deeper into the station. Jake checked his sidearm and looked around the command center. Pete was still at his post, monitoring communications. Susan was coordinating the defense from her station. Dr. Thompson was analyzing alien readings. These people were depending on him. The 43 souls on BlackRock 7 were his responsibility. Jake had never backed down from a fight in his life, and he was not about to start now. "All right, people," Jake said quietly. "They want a fight. Let us give them one they will never forget." The first alien warrior reached the central core 20 minutes after the boarding began. Jake watched through the security monitors as the creature moved down the main corridor, its 4 arms holding weapons that glowed with deadly energy. Danny. Cooper crouched behind a makeshift barrier of mining equipment. His pulse rifle was almost empty, and he had 3 wounded men with him. The standard security weapons were barely scratching the alien's natural armor. "This is not working," Danny muttered into his communicator. "We need something with more punch." Carl Brooks was thinking the same thing down in engineering. The chief engineer stood in his workshop, surrounded by the tools and equipment that kept BlackRock 7 running. His eyes fell on the mining laser controls. "Susan," Carl called over the communication system, "I have an idea. Those mining lasers we use to cut up asteroids. They put out a lot more power than our pulse rifles." Susan's voice came back immediately. "Can you reroute them for defensive use?" "Give me 10 minutes, Carl replied, already pulling panels off the control systems. But they did not have 10 minutes. More aliens were pouring through the hull breaches. Jake could see them on the monitors, moving through the station like a dark tide. Each warrior was bigger and stronger than any human, and their weapons were far more advanced. Dr. Lisa Thompson was working frantically with her scanners, trying to learn everything she could about the alien physiology. "Commander, I am detecting something interesting about their breathing patterns." "What kind of interesting?" Jake asked, not taking his eyes off the tactical display. "They are processing our atmosphere, but not efficiently. Their respiratory system seems adapted for a different gas mixture." Jake's military mind immediately saw the possibilities. "Can we use that against them?" Lisa's fingers flew over her controls. "Maybe. Our fire suppression system uses a halon gas mixture. If I can modify the atmospheric controls, do it," Jake ordered. "Whatever you need." Meanwhile, Susan was studying the station schematics on her screen. Years of academy training in ship design were paying off. She could see patterns in the alien advance, and more importantly, she could see ways to disrupt it. "Commander, I have an idea about slowing them down," Susan said. "The maintenance tunnels run throughout the station. We could use the mining charges to collapse certain sections, force them into kill zones." Jake nodded. "Take a team and do it, but be careful. Those tunnels are not meant for combat." Susan grabbed her equipment and headed for the nearest maintenance access. She knew every inch of Black Rock 7 after 3 years of duty. The aliens might be bigger and stronger, but this was her home ground. Carl finished his modifications to the mining laser controls. The industrial cutting beams were designed to slice through solid rock, not alien armor, but they were 100 times more powerful than pulse rifles. "Danny, fall back to engineering," Carl called. "I have some new toys for you." Danny and his remaining men retreated down the corridor, fighting a running battle with the alien warriors. The creatures followed, their strange weapons firing beams of energy that left smoking holes in the metal walls. As soon as Danny's team reached engineering, Carl showed them the modified controls. "These lasers will cut through anything. Just point and shoot." Danny picked up the first laser cutter and tested it on a piece of scrap metal. The beam sliced through it like butter. "Now we are talking." The next alien warrior to enter engineering got a surprise. Danny's new weapon cut through, its natural armor like paper. The creature let out a roar of pain and anger before collapsing. "Scratch one ugly," Danny said grimly. But the aliens were learning too. They began moving more carefully, using cover and coordinating their attacks. For every alien the humans killed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Dr. Thompson finished her modifications to the atmospheric system. "Commander, I am ready to test the gas mixture, but I need to warn everyone first. This could be dangerous for humans too." Jake made the announcement over the station's communication system. "All personnel, seal your emergency masks. We are about to make the air unfriendly for our visitors." Lisa activated her modifications. Throughout the station, the ventilation system began pumping out a new gas mixture. It was designed to be toxic to the alien respiratory system while remaining mostly harmless to humans. The effect was immediate. Aliens throughout the station began showing signs of distress. Their movements became slower and less coordinated. Some collapsed entirely. "It is working," Lisa reported excitedly. "Their respiratory system cannot process the modified atmosphere." Susan was having success with her own mission. Using mining charges, she had collapsed 3 major corridors, forcing the aliens to take longer routes through the station. She had also set up several ambush points where the remaining security teams could attack from concealment, but the aliens were not helpless. Their weapons were still devastating and they had numbers on their side. Even with the humans' new advantages, the battle was far from over. Jake watched the tactical display as the battle raged throughout his station. Red dots marked alien positions, while blue dots showed his own people. The aliens were being slowed down, but they were still advancing toward the central core. "Pete, any word from Earth Command?" Jake asked. The communications officer shook his head. "No response yet, Commander. We are pretty far from the main shipping lanes. It could be days before anyone gets our message. Jake knew they did not have days. They probably did not have hours. The station was holding together, but barely. Every alien weapon strike weakened the hull a little more. Carl's voice came over the communication system. "Commander, I have another idea. Those aliens came here in boarding pods, right? Their ships must have docking tubes or launch bays." "So?" Jake replied. "So what if we give them a reason to leave? The main reactor is damaged but still functional. If I can make it look like we are going to have a core breach..." Jake understood immediately. "A bluff. Make them think the whole station is about to explode." "Exactly. And if they do not buy the bluff, I can always make it real." It was a desperate plan, but they were in a desperate situation. "Do it, Carl. But give us some warning before you push the button for real." Carl began working on the reactor controls. Within minutes, alarms began sounding throughout the station. The computer announced a reactor emergency in its calm, mechanical voice. The effect on the aliens was immediate. Jake could see them through the security cameras, pausing in their advance and apparently communicating with their ships. After a few minutes, some of the alien warriors began falling back toward their boarding pods. "Some of them are leaving," Susan reported from her position in the maintenance tunnels. "But others are still advancing. I think they are calling our bluff." Jake made a quick decision. "Carl, how long before you can make the reactor threat real?" "About 5 minutes, Commander. But once I start that process, there is no stopping it. We would have maybe 10 minutes to evacuate." "Understood. Stand by." Dr. Thompson's gas modifications were taking a heavy toll on the remaining aliens. Their movements were becoming increasingly sluggish, and several had collapsed in the corridors. But the creatures that were still functional seemed to be adapting, finding ways to filter the toxic atmosphere. Danny and his team, now armed with the modified mining lasers, were holding the main approaches to the central core. The new weapons were devastating against alien armor, but ammunition was limited. Each laser cutter had enough power for maybe 20 shots. "Commander," Danny reported, "we are running low on charges for these things, and there are still a lot of aliens out there." Jake could see the tactical situation clearly. The humans had surprised the aliens with their adaptability and resourcefulness, but the battle was far from won. The creatures were regrouping and adapting to the human tactics. Susan emerged from a maintenance tunnel near the command center. Her uniform was torn and dirty, but her eyes were bright with determination. "Commander, I have an idea for one more surprise." "What do you have in mind?" Jake asked. "The main mining equipment is still functional. Those asteroid processors can generate a lot of kinetic energy. What if we turn them into weapons?" Jake looked at the station schematics. The mining equipment was designed to grab, process, and launch chunks of asteroid material. With some modifications, it could probably launch other things as well. "Can you make it work?" Jake asked. "Give me Carl in 20 minutes, Susan replied confidently. Jake looked around the command center. Pete was still monitoring communications. Dr. Thompson was analyzing more alien data. Outside, the battle continued to rage through the corridors of Blackrock 7. These people had done the impossible. A small mining station was holding off an alien invasion force through sheer human ingenuity and determination. But Jake knew the hardest part was still ahead. The aliens were learning from their mistakes. They would adapt their tactics, bring up heavier weapons, maybe even call for reinforcements. The humans had won the first round through surprise and cleverness, but the aliens would not be caught off guard again. "All right, people," Jake said quietly. "We have given them a bloody nose. Now let us see if we can finish the job." The battle for Blackrock 7 was entering its deadliest phase, but the humans were no longer fighting just to survive. They were fighting to win. "Desperate enemies do desperate things," Jake replied grimly. "It means we are winning." The alien bombardment was devastating but indiscriminate. Human and alien casualties mounted as the energy weapons tore through the station's hull. Sections that had been intact were suddenly exposed to vacuum. But the bombardment had an unintended effect. It was destroying the alien boarding pods as well as the station sections they were attached to. The surviving alien warriors found themselves trapped aboard a human station that was systematically killing them. "Commander," Danny's voice came over the communication system. "The aliens in my section are retreating. They are heading back toward their pods." "Same here," reported another security team. "The ones that can still breathe are trying to get out." Jake could see it happening all across the station. The alien invasion was collapsing. Between the poisoned atmosphere, the electromagnetic pulse, and their own fleet's bombardment, the